It's on. It's on. It's on.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna go. All right. What's up, and welcome to another episode of Black in the Maritimes. I'm Fidel.
I'm Hillary.
I'm Clinton.
And I'm Alon.
Yes, Alon is with us today. Marcus had to sit one out because he's shooting his video for his band Sonic Detour. And we have a guest tonight. Our guest is Tamara Steele. She is the president of the Black PEI Association. Thank you for being with us, Tamara.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I will just correct you quickly. It's the Black Cultural Society of PEI.
Thank you. It was a long name, so I couldn't say the whole thing. So
it's a long
Black
name.
Cultural Society of PEI. So definitely, we're really glad to have you on the show. So we start really with a background of people. So tell us a little bit about you. Like, where did you grow up, and how was your life?
How was my life? I grew up in Nova Scotia. I grew up in between Cole Harbour, East Preston, and Upper Hammonds Plains. I lived in Cole Harbour, but my family was in Upper Hammonds Plains and East Preston, so I spent a lot of time there. Growing up was a challenge sometimes, but ultimately, I had lots of family around me most of the time.
So is this a complete Black family, or is it like where you like Cole Harbour is a pretty white place, and East Preston, if people don't know, it's a Black place. It's one of the blackest places in the Maritimes because it's where the settlers and more Black Canadians are with. So how was your family? Were you guys originally from North Preston?
East Preston, yeah. So my mom was from East Preston, like between East Preston and Upper Hammonds Plains, as well as where she grew up. And then our family moved from East Preston to Cole Harbour when I was like 7. But it was we're a Black family. My dad's family is from St. Kitts in the West Indies, and they're a mixed family, half Black, half white. But I grew up as a Black family.
So if people don't know about Cole Harbour, that's where I think it's not Sidney Crosby's from Cold Lake, isn't he, or Cole Harbour?
He's from Cole Harbour.
He's from Cole Harbour, and McKinnon is from Cole Harbour. It's a place known for hockey superstars. It's a small town, Nova Scotia. For those that don't know, and it's pretty white. So how was it being as a Black family in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia?
Well, I moved out of Cole Harbour when I was 17, so I lived there for 10 years. So my entire experience living in Cole Harbour was just being in school. So I went to Bell Park until grade 2, and once I finished grade 2, I started grade 3 in a school in Cole Harbour. So that was really different because at Bell Park there was a lot of Black students. In Cole Harbour, at the school I attended, there were far fewer Black students. And same in my junior high, there was more Black students, but by that time I didn't have a lot of experience dealing with Black kids, and they thought I was weird because I moved, there was a lot of tension because I had moved out of a Black community into a primarily white community. So especially when I got to high school, and then students from a predominantly Black neighborhood fed into my high school. Students from a predominantly white and fairly racist community also fed into my high school. And this is the first time these two groups are meeting, really. And so I lived right in the middle of those two communities.
So go ahead, sorry.
So a lot of the Black kids thought I'm not Black enough because and I'm a traitor because I moved out of the Black community when I was a kid. And then, a lot of the white kids thought I'm Black, so they don't like me. So it was a really strange mix. And then, I definitely found my crew. It was a small one, but it was a great one. And it was just kind of strange that whole time. And then I moved out of there when I was 17.
And that's something that we all acknowledge. It doesn't happen to white folks, but it happens to immigrants and people of color. That when you are in a certain, because of the color of your skin, people think like, oh, you are too white for us, or you're too black for us, or you're too whatever for us. But nobody actually says when you're white, oh, you're too white. nobody says that to them. No, nobody says that like, oh, you're too white for us. No, no.
Yeah.
It only happens to people of color. So when you're in school and you realize that's a thing, like, oh, these black kids are saying, oh, you're not from that, on this white school, I'm like, oh, like, this is not from that. What's your thought of process? Is this the first time you had to deal with that, or you had to deal with that before in your life?
Yeah, I definitely dealt with that before. I was always a little bit nerdy as a kid growing up. So, like, I really liked school growing up, and I always kind of talked like this. Like, there was never a point where I used Ebonics, or I was never very good at slang.
Tamara, you put yourself on mute.
And yeah, I was never very good at slang. So I, I grew up in East Preston until I was 7. I lived there, and the kids I hung out with, up the road or down the road, they were always teasing me about, the way I talked. I talk white. I got a lot of Oreo cookie, white girl trapped inside of a black girl's body and that sort of thing. It never stopped them from hanging out with me, but they teased me a lot about it. And that hurt a lot, I guess, growing up. And then you think as you get older, that kind of stuff would stop, but then it never really did. And then like I said, I kind of found my crew in high school, I was a big band geek. So a lot of my friends were in the band, but there was a small contingency of black girls who were just like focused on getting good grades and graduating, and not having to spend another year behind, and not focusing on boys. And not saying that's what everyone was doing, but I mean, that's not what we were doing, and we really connected over those sorts of things.
And that's one thing that we try to promote on this podcast. Is like, we're not all the same. We're not. There's like, again, I feel when you're that part, when you say like you talk white, because people used to say that to me too. Like when I spoke English, it's like, oh, you're like a white man trapped in a black man's body. I heard that myself, and it's kind of odd in that sense that you're just trying to be yourself. You're not trying to be anybody else. You're not trying to be anything else, but you get judged because there is a stigmatism or some type of, not gender-based, I would not say, but I would say some type of perception of a black person. So that definitely goes, like, you get that perception of black people, and when you try to do something different because you are different, they're like, oh, this is not what I expected of you, or this is not. But I mean, it's really cool that you said that there was a lot of girls that were trying to, keep grades and things like that, because that, I don't think it also beat the stigma, but it's another shade of a person, right? Like, exactly. We're not all the same. We're not all trying to do dancers or be rappers or be basketball stars or be entertainers or.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I definitely joined a dance troupe in high school, and I was so bad at it. Bless them, they let me dance with them, but I was not the greatest.
Well, yes, I get that as well. I wasn't the best dancer at all, but I did have more. You know what? I'm originally from the Dominican Republic, and I was in the guy that in my country I didn't have enough rhythm. Like, I had enough rhythm for people, but not for Latino. And then when I came here to Moncton, I was like, oh my God, I got more rhythm than these people. Like, I'm a star here. These people have me when I came to PEI. These people have no rhythm. I was like,
I was talking about that with someone recently. A big city or cultured place 6 becomes a small town 11 very quickly. Like, we all I definitely felt that way in Toronto that I'm like, oh, I can't be here. But then I go home to Moncton, I'm like, oh, now I'm in 11. Now everyone thinks I can dance, I can sing, I'm good. So I feel you on all fronts there.
It's like, oh my god, look at this white people doing. For me, the weirdest thing was people dancing to country music. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Boots,
How is
and
this a
boogie.
thing?
Feel to get paid
I
off.
never saw that till I got here. I was like, what the fuck?
They
Oh,
teach you in
my.
high school how to square dance in 3rd grade
That
in white schools. I was the only black girl, also with no partner, square dancing in 6th grade.
That's got to be a
Oh,
maritime
wow.
That's a
thing
problem.
for
Yeah.
sure.
It
That's a
is
problem.
problem.
But it's so interesting too, because we always do stress that just because we have dark skin, we're not the same. We're all very different. We're
And we all
we're
can't
unique as they
dance. I
come.
can't dance. Just to
No.
throw that out there.
I think I've seen you. I think you've talked about that before, Alon. Yeah. But when we
Yeah.
have guests on the show and we listen to them speak, we always hear the same stories about growing up, same experiences. That you're not white enough, you're not black enough. The hair stories, and all these amazing experiences that we've all shared. So that's pretty cool.
So, quick question, and I mean, I forgot. Like, when you were at school, and you said that there was some racism. Like, when did you ever experience racism at school from your peers?
Yeah, for sure.
And how was that?
The worst thing that happened to me was as a kid, as I was in probably grade 3 or 4, maybe. Yeah, maybe like grade 4-ish. It was winter, and we would walk to and from school, and we would walk up this big hill, this path that was a big hill. And on the way down, in the winter, the hill would be icy, so it was pretty fun to just slide down it, or pretty terrifying to try to make your way down it, depending on who you were. So we're kind of having fun sliding down this hill, trying to slide down on our feet. And this one kid who was in grade 6, he was a white boy. He was a bit bigger. I don't remember his name, or even I couldn't pick him out in a crowd, but he grabbed my scarf and was, pretended I was a horse or whatever. Was like giddy up down the hill and was calling me the N-word, like giddy up nigger. And that was pretty awful. And I told some people, and they didn't believe me because it was such a ludicrous story that they thought I made it up. And my grade 3, it must have been grade 3, because I think I told my grade 3 teacher, and I remember her giving a lesson in the class shortly after that about the country Niger and the difference between the word Niger and the word nigger.
What?
What?
She was a black teacher. She's the only black teacher I had in grade school. And that's not true. I had a black teacher in high school as well. And because she put it on the board, I think she just wanted people to know that there was a word, but that's not. And she put it on the board and asked, what do you think this word is? And everyone was like, ooh. And she's like, yeah, that's not even that word.
But this kid wasn't calling you a country. He was.
Yeah, it was
that's not how you fix that moment. That is, no offense to this lovely teacher who I think tried, but that's not a teachable moment. That's how you do a teachable moment.
Yeah.
You don't try to educate someone on the name of a country by telling them not to use the word nigger. No. I'm upset.
So, but I mean, one thing, like you come from a black family. Did they ever prepare you for that, or was it something that you, like, your parents? I don't know if we all have experienced some type of racism at some time here, from in different perspective. Because that's the other thing people don't understand. It's like, just because you call us niggers, that doesn't mean, like, there's other ways of racism that people expect, and then you're like, wait, or like, and they like, oh, I didn't know that was racism. It's like, yes,
like
that's
the time I wore my hair in braids and put beads on the end, because that was my favorite thing. And the grade 6 teacher asked me what tribe that look was from.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like those things have like those things, or like, how do you, like, for example, I could tell you an example for myself. When they tell you, like, oh, I'm trying to do this, it's like, oh, you should go to the multicultural or the African association is like, what the hell does that have to do with it? I don't need to go to that place. Like, why am I going to go there for? But yeah, like we all experience it in different situations. So because you come from a Black mother and a Black father, like when you talk to them, did they ever kind of told you what was going to happen, or was it something that you had to discover on your own?
I don't recall ever having that type of conversation with my parents. I feel like my mom probably, like, not having that conversation in depth. I feel like there was probably times where my mother said, you know, honey, these things will happen kind of thing, but not really providing me any tools to manage those situations. And I don't fault her for that. I think that has a lot to do with how she grew up and kind of giving me what she knew. And I don't know that she entirely knew how to manage those situations effectively at the time, given her experience. So no, I don't. I largely just kind of figured it out.
So did you ever had any other peers, like any other Black kids, and was that a conversation, or was that never a conversation?
I don't remember having too many conversations about it. I didn't have a lot of Black friends growing up. I had my little cohort in high school, and we definitely, you know, most of the conversations were more like, white girls be like, you know, or whatever, but it was never like, or Black boys be like, but it was never, I don't remember having too many I think there was one night where this little cohort of mine in high school had a little sleepover, and I think we had some chats about it that night, just like we kind of got pretty deep into, you know, this happened to me and this happened to me, and just talking about experiences we've had and just like trying to figure out amongst ourselves why this stuff happens to us. But other than that, I don't really remember. I remember anytime I did have a Black friend, I'd be like, this is awesome. But never, you know, just like feeling like, even though I talk like this, I still, you know, code switch in white spaces, you know. Not just having friends, the odd friend growing up where I didn't have to do that. Really refreshing each time that happened, but it.
And the funny thing is like, again, for those people that don't know about Nova Scotia is one of the places in Canada that has a lot of Black history, if not the most. It could be one of the most. And you would think that a place that has such rich Black history, Canadian Black history, which again, not saying this is where settlers are. These people have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. You would think that people would be more educated about that, but they're really not, because it's still small towns, and you know, it's the Maritimes. The Maritimes is like a cohort of small towns, maybe a big city like Halifax, maybe a city like Moncton, but then everything is small fields and things like that. So I think that's one of the things that people kind of are surprised by that, but that's how it goes. So you get out of high school at 17. Where do you go from there?
PEI.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. So you go from a place that has Black people, but not that Black people. Then you go to an island that rarely has Black people.
Yeah.
What was it for, university?
Yeah, I moved here for school. Like I said, I was a band geek, and I moved here because I wanted to study specifically with the brass professor at UPEI.
Were there lots
teaching
of international students at the one at UPEI?
At the time, there
Chinese,
weren't
right?
a lot. At the time, there weren't a lot. It was a very white school at the time. That was in 1999, and the population from then to now is vastly different. I dated a white guy in my first year of university, and he literally one day mistook me for the other Black girl on campus. Sorry, I said that backwards. He mistook her for me. He says to me one day, why didn't you wave to me when I saw you earlier, when I drove by you earlier? And I was like, A, you didn't drive by me earlier, and B, if you drove by me, why didn't you pick me up?
Oh my God.
What?
But then he's trying to tell me, you know, you were wearing this and you were walking here. And I was like, dude, that was this other person. Like, that was not me. Our hair is different. She's much shorter than me. Her skin is darker than mine. Like, she was stockier than me at the time. And like,
Oh, wow.
we were friends, but we looked very different. And he definitely thought she was me. And
Did he think that you were the only two black people on the whole island? Like, what?
Well, you know what? We may have been.
But it could have been.
That's not true. There was like a couple basketball players that were here. I know there was a guy from Jamaica. There was maybe, like, I probably could name them, list them on one hand.
For the whole island.
That were in the university. I didn't go across the whole island.
Okay.
From what I know now of the population that's here, there definitely would have been more, because there's some people who are like in their 20s now who grew up here, who were born here and grew up here. So they would have been small kids at that time, right? But yeah, it was like you never walked down the street and saw another black person, for sure.
Okay, so you're 17, you move from Nova Scotia to PEI.
Don't forget, though, I was very comfortable in white spaces.
No, that's fine. But like you were comfortable of it, so you knew where you were going. So you were like, okay. So you move in, you settle. What's your what's your reaction about the atmosphere in PEI in general?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, and I don't know what kind of person this is gonna make me sound like. I didn't have a whole lot of friends growing up. So when I moved here, I was everyone's black friend, and everyone thought I was really cool. And that was awesome. There came a point in probably partway through my first year, maybe, where I realized everyone thought I was cool because I was their black friend. And then it became much less cool. Moving here, I never really considered that I was moving to a place with a lot of white people and not very many black people. It just never crossed my mind. I was like, I'm going to school.
Yeah, as it should not. It should not cross your mind.
And that's all I thought. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I realized, you know, when I would get the people sticking their hands in my hair without permission, and the people asking if they can touch my skin, and the people saying, you must not be used to the cold here. I'm like, we get the same weather as you, and that sort of thing. That's when it became like, that's when I started to feel really awkward, and I felt really othered beginning then.
Okay, so Hillary has a question.
That's what, I had a friend.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No.
No, it's okay. I forget what I was going to say.
Oh wow! Sorry about that.
You had a friend.
You had a friend?
No, it's okay. Oh yeah, I had a friend in Halifax who was a white man that I hung out with a little bit, and I'd call him every now and again, and we'd have a chat, and the question he would ask me all the time was, "Do you miss black people?" And I was like, at first I was like, no, I mean, I miss people who happen to be black, but I don't specifically miss black people. But then after I realized that, and I'm not saying all of the people I was friends with liked me because of my skin color, because they thought that was cool, but there were definitely a number of them who did. And once I figured that out, and once I started feeling othered by certain comments or certain gestures, that's when I started to be like, oh, it does make a difference. It does make a difference to have people who like understand your experience and look like you and I don't feel like the ugly duckling all the time, you know? Yeah.
Fair. I definitely want to say, first of all, that I relate to all of that experience from like being in sixth grade and having kids hit me over the head with badminton rackets because it bounced off of my afro, and them thinking that I was just so cool because I was the only black kid in the school. So I totally relate to everything that you're saying. The like question that I really wanted to ask was more just like about the differences in provinces, because I find like my perception of PEI as someone who's only really visited is like it's so much like rural and agriculture and small town, and so I'm wondering if that makes it inherently a more racist place, like maybe not outright as like calling you the N word, let's say, but even in just like systematic racism, if it's more racist because you were that token black person and they had never really had as many black people before, even at the university, or if because it was so small and so many people could call each other out because you know who was being racist. Like, I'm just wondering like what the atmosphere was like, even just from Nova Scotia, because like I know in New Brunswick I experienced like quite a bit of racism, but at the same time there were people at school to call people out. You knew who like spray painted the swastika on the church because it was small enough and people would get their asses handed back to them. So I'm just wondering if the smallness of PEI made a difference at all, or if it was even like worse.
I think that in PEI, I want to think through this answer carefully because I'm trying to decide if my answer is different now than it was 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, probably even up to 10, 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, my answer definitely would be it's more ignorance than racism. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I still think that in a lot of cases, that's what it is. So I think that now I maybe I have more vocabulary to describe it, but I think that it's largely people don't know that they're being racist. 20 years ago, people didn't have a lot of experience with Black people or with anyone from another culture, from other cultures or other ethnicities or nationalities. It was a very European, it was very, Scottish, Irish descendants, and not a lot of anything else. So people didn't have experience dealing with anything else. So, they meet someone like me and I'm a novelty, and they don't realize that saying, where are you from? Halifax, where are you really from? Maybe is not the right way to go about that question. Yes. Or you must not be used to the cold. Well, I'm from Halifax, we get the same weather as you. Yeah, but still, might not be the right way to go about that question, So I think they just genuinely didn't know. I think that over the last, I'm going to say 10 years especially, the population has changed drastically, like I mentioned, and there's a lot of Black people from different places, Black people from other places in Canada, from the States, from different African countries, from Caribbean countries, and from the UK. Like there's a lot of Black people, different cultures of Black people here. There's a lot of different cultures of Asian people here. East Asian, South Asia. There's a lot. It's huge, the difference. And I think that in 2020, for people to still show that level of ignorance,
Alon had
if you're still showing that level of ignorance, then that becomes racism, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can't, with so many different people, with such a varied population here, there's not really any excuse for people to still say, where are you from? Where are you from? That's not acceptable anymore. And I think that a lot of people are realizing that and trying to address that. And I think a lot of people find it difficult to understand that your racist actions may not be intentional, but oftentimes it's not the intention that matters, it's the impact. So you might touch my hair because you think it's cool, but the impact that has on me, that's a racist gesture to me. And because you didn't intend it to be that way doesn't mean it's, you punch me in the arm, you can't say it doesn't hurt because you didn't mean for it to hurt, So I think that it's a lot of unconscious bias, and I think a lot of people are trying to contend with that, but a lot of people don't understand what unconscious bias is. So they just strongly believe that they're not racist because considering that anything that they do might be considered as racist, to them equates to they are racist, and that damages their ego, is what I think. People want to feel that they're inherently good, and they don't want to. Sorry, I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went on a tangent.
No, it did. Thank you very much.
Tamara, I have some questions, and first of all, I'm so excited to talk to you because even though I was born and raised in Toronto, my mom is from PEI, and from I was 2 weeks old, every summer they'd pack us in the vehicle my whole life and drive us out to PEI for 2 weeks. I've spent whole summers there. I've been on the island 50, 60 times, and
Wow.
in fact, I have over 250 relatives on that island, blood related to me. So I have a deep connection with PEI, and
Come visit next time.
I
Hi.
will. As a member of the Black in the Maritimes show, I mean, a lot of our focus is on New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. So I'm really excited to pick your brain a little bit.
Sure.
So you've been in PEI for how many years? 20 years now? 21?
21, yeah.
Okay. How many Black people would you say are in PEI right now?
The most recent census information we have is from 2016, and that says there are 825 Black people here.
Okay.
And we figure if you factor in growth, there's a little over 1,000. But then if you factor in international students, there's probably twice that many.
What's the full population? Sorry.
137, 140, something around
Okay. Thank you. Continue, Clinton.
It's growing. And the international thing is interesting too. In all of my experiences in PEI, I can't directly, and there's a lot of experiences, directly remember any instances of racism. People feeling like I was treated different or discriminatory, yet curiosity, questions, unintentional ignorance maybe, but never any hatred. And I feel like PEI is actually one of the most diverse provinces in the Maritimes because of their huge tourism industry. With an island of 137,000, I know even 20 years ago, on any given day in the summer, there could be over 1 million people on that island as a result of tourism. But maybe the circles you were in, they didn't, you had unique experiences because you were in university around people a lot. So you're the president of the Black Cultural Society of PEI.
Mm-hmm.
When did that form, and how many people are in it?
Okay, I want to address the first thing you said, and I think I largely addressed it in my last question. The first thing you said was that you don't recall having any racist experiences.
And especially compared to my past 11 years in New Brunswick, in which I've had a ton.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate what I said before, was that I don't think that a lot of the experiences that I've had in most of the last 20 years have been unintentional ignorance, unconscious bias, not realizing that what they're saying is hurtful, and is based subconsciously or unconsciously in racism, in systemic racism. They don't understand that. So I would agree with you, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think that now the fact that those things are still happening it's getting to the point of unacceptable.
It's 2020,
That being said, this year in particular, since we held the Black Lives Matter March in June, which was massive, people are really up in arms. People who don't believe, people who believe all lives matter or blue lives matter or whatever they want to say, those, anyone who wants to provide a counter argument to Black Lives Matter who lives on PEI, those people are starting to show their true colors.
Wow. Are you in Charlottetown?
Yeah.
Okay. How many people are in the organization?
Okay, so I'll answer your second question now. The organization was formed in 2016.
Yeah.
There used to be an organization called the Black Islanders Cooperative, so I'm not sure if you guys are aware. I'm not assuming you're not aware, but I'm not sure if you are. There used to be a community in the 19th century here, for the majority of the 19th century, called the Bog, and that's where a lot of freed slaves lived. It was largely a Black community. It was not solely a Black community, but it was largely a Black community. And that community disappeared in the early 1900s. And their descendants of those Black families are still here. They no longer present, most of them no longer present as Black, but they are descendants of these Black families. So there was a group that was formed called the Black Islanders Cooperative that was focused on genealogy of those family lines. And they disbanded at one point, and then there was kind of nothing left to support those descendants or the growing Black population at the time. So in 2016, the Black Cultural Society formed. There were 3 members who formed it, and then they had a couple of periphery members who helped out with some things, and they started doing some really great work around Black History Month and Emancipation Day, and a few other events and concerts and some fun stuff, some educational stuff. And then some of those members started moving away, and they all kind of moved away at one point and then or another. And in 2019, I got involved a little bit for Black History Month in 2018, but then in 2019, I got asked to come on board to help plan the Black History Month activities. And it was myself and 2 other men, Daniel and Chijoke, and Sarah, who was one of the founding members. And after that February, that was February 2019, the previous board stepped down and appointed us as the new board because they just loved our energy and we worked really well together. We had a great chemistry. So in 2019, we took over. I was appointed as president, and we really saw, since then, we've just been noticing a shift in the community and a need for us to transition from an organization that raises awareness of Black culture more to an organization that services the Black community. So we're in the process of making that transition now. I'm very excited about it.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me first and foremost? Because I switched to my laptop. So.
Yep, you're all good.
Awesome, cool. So first off, I just want to thank you for joining us and telling us your story. I can resonate with a lot of what you said as far as racism growing up. And I'm from New York City originally. I'm a resident here in Canada. So my experience childhood-wise wasn't as bad, but the dumb questions and the stupid comments, those kind of are clear across the board in North America. The whole being too white to be Black and all that nonsense, like been there, done that, got the postcard. I would have beat that kid senseless on that hill in 3rd grade. Like I'm a New Yorker, like you're not putting your hands, you know what I mean? So anyway, but I've been to PEI for work, and I don't stay very long when I'm PEI. I love Robin's Donuts on the island. It's my one stop whenever I'm there. Their donuts pair so nicely with their coffee. I love it. They're just some really tasty treats on the island, right? So I enjoy my time there. I can't say that I've ever experienced any racism on the island, but I get the stares, you get the looks, and I think my big question is, I guess my statement first is that, in 2020, even in your youth and in my youth and all of our youth, racism is racism. And I still don't feel there's ever an excuse for it. I'm not of the mindset of this whole, ignorant racism or unknowing racism. It's like taking cookies out of a cookie jar when you're not supposed to as a kid. You know it's wrong. You know it's wrong. Everyone tells you it's wrong. Cartoons tell you it's wrong. Everyone tells you it's wrong. So I mean, I'm not of that ideology. I feel that, if you're going to come out of your mouth and say something ignorant and stupid, I think it's something that you've thought of and you've calculated it and you've said it. But again, I'm a cynical New Yorker, so that's just how I think. But I think my question is, what do you feel needs to be done on the island because you only have 137 people. So basically you've got a Moncton on the entire island. What kind of initiatives do you feel need to be in place to make that shift happen from, people who are making these slips to people who are going to be conscious and aware of what they're saying and what they're doing and how they're behaving? Because like you said, there are descendants there from a black community that was way back in the day, and now they are visibly white, but they have black ancestry. That's huge for that island. That needs to be brought up to the forefront and be made known even more. So what do you feel needs to be done on the scope of PI as a whole to get that older generation on board, get the younger generation tapped in, and to move forward and to become, a progressive, a progressive group in the Maritimes?
That's an awesome question. I think that we're doing that work now, and I think it's largely based in community engagement. So I think that the descendant community, I'll call them, they are, we've been in contact, we're in contact with a few of them, and I think that they are on board. We do have plans to work further with them to develop, education, Black history education around that community, and we've been raising awareness of that community since this current board got together. The previous board was also raising some awareness of that. There's one park that's pretty central in where that location was. It's called Rochford Square, but we call it the Bog. We say the Bog in Rochford Square. Anytime we try to use that space as much as we can, and we always reference the Bog when we do. We included an acknowledgement to the ancestors who lived in the Bog in our land acknowledgement during the march. So I think that engaging that community, I think you're exactly right, engaging that community and educating about, engaging those descendants, and educating about that community is very key. And we've definitely got some cultural organizations on board with helping out with that. And we're working on the government as well to try to fund some sort of, memorial or something like that. And we're talking about, like I said, a curriculum piece for schools as well. So that is slowly in the works, but in the works. I think that to address things like unconscious bias is education. It's just educating people. I think we can throw diversity and multiculturalism on top of whatever laws and legislation we want to, but until you start changing people's actual minds and how they think and how they consider their actions in relation to others, I think there's not a whole lot that legislation can really do. So we're working with government on reviewing policy and reviewing legislation, that sort of thing. So we're doing that work there just to make sure that the wording of any of those policies don't disenfranchise our communities. And other than that, I'm just trying to speak on it as much as I can. We're trying to increase our capacity as a society so we can have the means to have different voices speaking in different places on these issues, and really engaging the community so that we can be, as the Black community, we can come together amongst ourselves, and then also just be supportive for one another, but also to be really functional and productive members of society as well. So, and infiltrate. Yeah.
So I want to say something. I mean, I feel like the work that you guys are doing is pretty amazing, and I'm glad we found you and we have all these questions. But I want to bring it a little bit back to you moved to PEI. What made you stay in PEI? Like, why did you like what happened? Like when what did you graduate from? First thing,
love.
So, okay, so what did you graduate from UPEI?
I graduated with a music degree.
Oh, nice. So
I got a Bachelor of Arts with a major in music and a minor in English.
Oh, pretty cool. So you graduate, and I'm assuming you met this gentleman or lady, I don't know exactly, in school, in university.
I met him drunk on a dance floor in a bar.
That's a very PEI thing to do.
Which bar? Shout out to bar. Which bar?
And we just passed 18 years together. So 7 years married, 18 years together.
What was the bar?
It was called Melons. It doesn't exist anymore. It's a Timothy's coffee shop now.
PEI listeners will know it though, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
If they're my age, they will.
The power of booze, people. That's what booze can do to you. And alcohol. So you okay? So I'm assuming this person is an Islander, right?
Not originally. He's from Ontario, and he moved here when he was about 10. And he moved. I don't know. He was hanging out in Charlottetown with his brother, maybe. I can't remember. It was a long time ago, but I don't know how. We met on a dance floor, and we kept going to the same shows. We kept going out to see the same bands. He was always there, and then one day he bought me a drink, and it was over. So.
Is this the 2000s when people used to wear baggy clothes and listen to Nelly and stuff? Was this the time?
Definitely, yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. I can
pretty much.
Okay, so that makes that makes sense of why you stayed. So you're living here. You're definitely here. You're PI. When did you started advocating? Like I know you started this. You're the president now. This organization started in 2016. But when was the first time you started like advocating for these type of initiatives?
Now, I mean, I've always been pretty quiet, and I've always been pretty. Anyone who knew me in my gin drinking days would refute that statement that I've always been pretty quiet. But I've generally been pretty quiet, semi-introverted. I love to be in the background. I'm an administrative assistant by trade, and I love to just kind of make things happen in the background and let someone else stamp their name on it. I love singing backup in bands, and so this was all very new to me. I mean, I've always been very opinionated for sure, and I've rarely been hesitant to make my opinions known. But as far as being at the forefront and advocating, like I would definitely question someone and call people to task if I think that, what they said or what they did was wrong or offensive. But I've always been there to stand up for my friends if need be. But being at the forefront and calling myself an activist or community organizer has never, it's kind of fell in my lap out of the blue, and it's, I think it's kind of coming more naturally than I ever thought it would.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah. So what do you think is the with the organization as a whole? Like, I know you guys are moving to help like what do you wish that PEI could become in the future?
I guess I wish that PEI could become woke. I wish that PEI could be a really strong, tight-knit community that serves its entire population equally and strongly, and I hope that PEI can do this work relatively quickly and become an example for the rest of the country for how to make systemic change.
That is a good message. I mean, definitely it's something that I think people like you and the organization that you're with, I think they are working towards that. And I think it will happen. It's going to take time, but I think it will happen. I think that's something that we all strive to do. I mean, we don't want less or more. We want the same. And I think that's what people think. Like we don't want more than you. We want the same. And I think not only for Black, Indigenous, Asian, doesn't matter. We want to be treated equally, and we want to make sure that there's not more for us and less for you. There's the same for everybody.
Exactly.
And there's more enough. So I definitely think so. Tamara, we definitely want to thank you for being in this podcast. If anybody wants to reach out to the organization or you, how can they do that?
They can contact us via email at blackculturesocietype@gmail.com, or they can find us on Facebook at the same, Black Culture Society PE, might be PEI. Or they can find us on our brand spanking shiny new website.
Yay.
Shout out to Antimatter Creative Labs in Halifax. Thank you. Our website is absolutely beautiful, and it just launched a few days ago, and it's bcspei.ca.
Well, shout out to me because I'm the one that does the Black and the Maritimes one, so I'll shout out to them as well. All right, so Tara, we really want to thank you for being on the show. You can count on us for anything that you guys are doing. We're so glad we were able to talk to you because we found this, and it's nice to see we call this podcast Black and the Maritimes, and we talk a lot about the Maritimes and Canada as a whole, but sometimes we don't do that as much as we want to, just because we can't find the people. We can't find the people that are doing stuff in other provinces. We try. And if you're hearing us, contact us. We definitely want to talk to you. But I do want to thank you because I feel like the work that you guys are doing there, it's pretty important, and we want to echo that for you guys. We want to do that because I think that's the need that we need to do. So I really appreciate you for being here. So now we are going to talk about another subject. So we're going to let Tamara, because it's almost not her bedtime yet. So she can go. We record this at night, people. So Tamara said, it's not my bed. It's way past my bedtime. I'm like, okay, I'll make sure you get to that. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
And also, Tamara, can we ask you maybe to be kind of our lifeline to PEI?
Please.
Maybe send us
100%.
updates and content, articles, accomplishments, achievements, news coming out of PEI. Send it to me at the Facebook or Instagram page so we can share more PEI contact with our followers.
100%. Yep, we can do that.
Okay, we'd really appreciate
Oh yeah,
that.
we're on
That's awesome.
Instagram too. I always forget about Instagram.
Yeah. What's the Instagram handle?
Plug that Instagram.
Black Cultural Society PEI.
Okay. Not of PEI, but Black Cultural Society PEI.
Correct.
Okay.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. This
Thank
is
you.
great. Okay, good night.
Bye.
Okay, guys, so we're going to now go to the subject of the Black civil servants. So you cut that, and then we'll go from there.
Nope, not cutting the video.
I can if you will need
No,
me to.
Let's go.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we're now cutting the video. Okay, so we're gonna
Blooper
So
reel.
we're talking right now. The news that we have for this week is the Black civil servants alleges discrimination proposed for a class action lawsuit against Ottawa. So this is a lawsuit by former and current civil servants of the federal government in Canada. they're alleging that there has been decades of discrimination and racism, and they are doing a civil lawsuit, and they are seeking 900 million in damages for all the plaintiffs. Now, there is 12 former current employees for multiple government departments. There might be more, but they're saying that there's been discrimination of people of color since as long as they can remember, going up to the 1970s. So let's start with Hillary. What do you think about this?
I mean, I'm definitely not surprised at all. I think that one of the examples recently that the government of Canada showed its true colors was when Yagmeet Singh asked like president as if Prime Minister Trudeau to like denounce racism in the name of like police brutality and everything that was going on in this summer, and that like Yagmeet Singh called out someone as racist, and then they asked him to leave the Senate. And so like that was like again a moment where Canada could have stepped up, shown that they were completely, you know, against racism, anti-racist as a country, and they didn't. So I'm not surprised that this is how they treat their Black employees at all. I think that it's sort of just on brand of like brushing it under the rug. I'm definitely not surprised, and like it definitely happens in a lot of Canadian corporations. I've seen it in different places that I've worked at as well. So to me, I'm not surprised.
What about you, Clinton?
Not surprised at all. This is a great year to bring it to the light, to bring it to the public, and launch that lawsuit and see what happens. I mean, we just had a guest on the show here a few months ago in New Brunswick that was speaking about the same thing: discrimination in government, like hardcore, blatant discrimination in government. I actually think we should contact her and see if she's part of the class action suit, because this is right up the alley of the kind of the expose we did months ago. Elena Pelletier, I think.
Yeah, and she's provincial. She used to work for the provincial government,
So
but this is a federal government lawsuit.
just another branch of government, though. I mean, there can't be any surprise in any of our minds that they're alleging racism in the government going back decades. I mean, look at Indigenous people. Look at the fact that correct me if I'm getting the details wrong, but Black civil rights were not even written into Canadian legislature or law until, what, the late 70s?
1977.
1977. No protections whatsoever. So I'm glad this is happening. I want to see how it plays out, and we got to have change moving forward. If there's going to be people in power in government, if they can't even get promoted, they're not going to get elected. That's it.
So what about you, Alon?
I totally agree with Hillary and with Clinton. I remember that podcast with that lady who was from the Capitol area, I believe. I think that's the one Clinton's referencing. That podcast made me extremely upset. And it made me extremely upset because of the fact that, you know, growing up, she wasn't even aware of how bad the racism was when she was growing up. Like, she was totally oblivious. And I'm sitting there listening to her and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, no one told you that this was wrong? But it doesn't surprise me at all. And you know what? The worst offenders are the Francophone community. I'm sorry. It's one of those things where, you know, the Francophones claim to be a minority and they claim to, you know, be about equality and all this other nonsense, but then they want to hold on to whatever position that they think they have for dear life. And quite frankly, the majority of people in federal and provincial situations of government are Acadian, and they are bilingual, and they are the ones who are exercising the racist behavior. They are the ones who are being biased. They are the ones who are stopping individuals like that lady from Capitol from advancing. They are the ones who hold the power and the reins most of the time. So, you know, for me, it's not a shock at all. Will they win? It's not the states, so I don't know how much and how far they'll get. But I agree with Clinton. This is a great year to bring it up. It's the year of just calling out everyone's bullshit. I hope they don't stop until they get some sort of conclusion and some sort of restitution to this. But it just angers me that this is just something that's commonplace here in the Maritimes, that people think this shit is okay, and they go on for so long thinking it's okay. And, you know, there has to be something of a large event like this that hopefully, again, will continue to get press, because Canadian press loves to sweep this shit under the rug after the first 10 days. So hopefully it'll continue to get press. Hopefully people will, get behind this cause and continue to voice loudly how much corruption and much racism and bias is within the government structure. And I hope they win some money. I really do. But I think that there needs to be a consistent pressure, though. We're really bad here in North America when we get on a bandwagon and then we just let it slide. Like even here in Moncton, we had Black Lives Matter protests, and what happened a few days later? It was like it never happened. So, issues that pertain to race need to have a consistent push behind them to continue to keep them in the forefront, because white people, unfortunately, are like, you know what, I'll just deal with that tomorrow. You know what, it doesn't affect me today. Oh, I'll deal with that the next day. Oh, and that's the problem. And so unless it's in the forefront and constantly being talked about, this too runs the risk of being thrown into the back burner.
I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge is that this happens in all forms of government, provincial and federally, and this has happened to other races, indigenous, one of the Asians as well. Also, my concern with this is that people don't try to think about this as like people that just want money, but it also speaks of the lack of participation of Black people in government. There's so little of them. It's kind of silly that there's so little participation of Black people in federal government. And we have a prime minister that he's saying, yes, he's saying all the right things. And yeah, he's putting on some money, but it's really not enough. It's a start. It's definitely a start, but it's something that we have to check with this case, because I think I do agree with Alon. I think it's just gonna die down, and then people are not gonna really care about it, and they're just gonna twist it and turn it. But if this goes in a positive way, this could be an outcome for more people in the provincial side to come out and call out discrimination. I think that's the thing about
But
it.
I also feel that, again, I think that people in the Maritimes, especially, there was that lady in Kapolei, was also a gentleman here locally who was running for office who lives in Dieppe. And he was a very French dude, Black guy. He had moved here with his family from Quebec, and he was running in this past election here locally. And, he too had the audacity to sit on your podcast and talk about, oh, I've never experienced racism. Like, dude, you're full of shit. Like, I'm sick and tired of Black people in the Maritimes not realizing or being brainwashed or being manipulated or being bribed or whatever the case is to realize that shit happens to you for a fucking reason. This dude came here and was like, no, there's no such thing as racism. I've never experienced racism. And then, a week later, someone cut the eyes out of his campaign posters, and then he was still like, oh, I don't understand how this happened. It bugs me. The people, the Black individuals and the minority individuals who are trying to get into power are not representative of what's going on. There needs to be, minority people, Black women, Black men, whoever it is, to just come out and just be real about what's going on. I'm sick and tired of minority individuals running for office or being chosen by the masses to run for office who are saying nothing that mirrors what's actually happening to Black people here in the Maritimes. I couldn't stand that dude. I went in his Facebook page and I tore into him because I was sick of his nonsense. And so it's Black people getting into politics, I think, is one answer. But you got to get the right Black people into politics, right? You can't get minorities into politics who are only concerned about securing their seat at the table, and that's it. And that's what happens with Indigenous people. If you ever look at any Indigenous representative, they are white as white can be. They are the lightest, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Indigenous people I've ever seen in my life. They're not representative of true Indigenous people. They're Indigenous 3 generations removed. But you know what? Because of the fact of white individuals who are there at the table and hold the power, that's what they're comfortable with. And that, for me, is not working. So, you know what? Yeah, we do need more Black people to run in politics and to be representative for all minorities. But you know what? Get the right minorities in there. Like I'm sick and tired of the whitewashed minorities running for office and getting the support, and then they get there and nothing gets done, and then we cry and boo-hoo about why nothing's getting done. Sorry, that's my rant.
I think
Okay,
I just
to-
watched a
second
second
thought.
second thought live.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, to all of our listeners out there, that was Alon McCall from On Second Thought. He has a sideshow on our Black in the Maritimes page. Go check it out.
Know why now?
That is the sneak peek of the.
Yeah, that definitely sounded like.
On Second Thought.
Whoa.
Sorry.
All I was gonna say was that like it's definitely like people pandering to their minority and token minorityism to get the seat to then do nothing is complete bullshit. Like Alon was saying, I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, there we have. You have an idea for On Second Thought. That's definitely that. So okay, so we're definitely gonna. I think we should definitely talk about more about politics because it's something important when we talk about the podcast. But we're gonna leave it at that. Don't forget to subscribe to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Leave us a comment and a rate. That really helps up the show. So if you can do that, that will be great for us. This is our first video recording that we're gonna do constantly now. So hopefully we all can get this and we'll see how it goes. So you can watch us on YouTube. You guys have anything else to say?
We have merch. Buy our merch. First of all.
Yes,
Second of all,
please.
Follow me on Crapberry and my blog for Black in the Maritimes. And thank everyone for blowing up the last one. It was very humbling and touching. Thanks.
Yeah, guys, we have merch, bags, T-shirts coming out with some new options coming soon. Check that out. We have our GoFundMe campaign still going, which has been amazing. It's helped us get some cameras and some higher quality microphones and get the word out there with some advertising and find people like Tamara, who we had on the show earlier today. Like us on Facebook and Instagram. And like Fidel said, the YouTube channel is coming soon. So when you see that pop up, please subscribe. It really helps spread the message even further. And thanks for listening.
Alon?
Thanks for listening to this episode. Forgive my rant, but you can check out more rants on Second Thought, which is a subsidiary of this fine podcast. I'll pull a Marcus. Check out my band Echo 7 on all digital platforms. We have a video on YouTube, and buy some merch. Be clear about where you stand, and buy the merch, buy the tote bags, and show your support.
All right. Peace out.